The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, wherever in the world you are. Welcome to Performance Evolution, putting the brand marketing budget to work. Our focus today, the future of performance and affiliate marketing, where it's going, how it's changing the entire marketing scene. We've just conducted some very interesting research, some groundbreaking research. We surveyed almost 1,900 performance marketers in the US and 400 more in the UK. It's the first study of its kind. Combined, these marketers manage about $16.6 billion in annual sales. And we're going to share some insights from those reports. And we have two wonderful experts to help us unpack where affiliate and performance marketing is going. I'm going to introduce Bob and Brian briefly right now and a little more in depth a little later. My name is John Kutsier. I'm Tune's mobile economist. I also write for Forbes and Inc. And I'm super happy to have the super accomplished Robert Glazer, goes by Bob, CEO of Acceleration Partners and author of the best-selling book, Performance Partnerships. It's also great to have Tune's very own VP of Global Marketing with us, Brian Marcus, who has a long history in performance marketing, and I'll get into the details in a moment. So more on them in a moment, but who's Tune and who is Acceleration Partners? Well, Tune has built an amazing marketing measurement platform that helps enterprise, retail, and brand customers grow their business by investing their marketing dollars for the highest return. And there's a few more details on screen. Who's Acceleration Partners? You probably already know about them. You've probably heard about Tune as well. But Acceleration Partners is the leading performance marketing agency that delivers brand-aligned affiliate marketing for top global companies. So before we jump into the full webinar here for a moment, I've got something special for you. It's pretty incredible. Postback 2018 is coming up. So on July 19 and 20 in Seattle, every year Tune hosts what we call the mobile event of the summer, and it's amazing, in Seattle, and we want you there. Check it out at postback.tune.com, and here's a $200 off coupon code, brand to work 200. Just take a peek at that website, postback.tune.com. You will not believe who we've had in the past, who we've got lined up for this year. We've had Malcolm Gladwell, we've had Ray Kurzweil. If you heard of the Singularity, he's the guy on that. We've also had an NFL head coach speaking about leadership. It's been amazing. It's going to be great. Love to see you there. Just an FYI, Bob will be on stage, Brian will be on stage, I'll be on stage, and looking forward to seeing you at Postback in Seattle in July. Excellent. So let's get started. We're talking about performance evolution. We're talking about putting the brand marketing budget to work. And we've had this artificial distinction in marketing. We've had this distinction between brand marketing on the one side and performance marketing on the other side. It's as if one has to pay for itself and somehow one doesn't. It's very odd. It's something that's been changing over time and maybe very, very quickly right now. So let's be straight out. The realization is sinking in for marketers everywhere that every piece of marketing is brand and every piece of marketing is performance. But what's interesting is that we're starting to become much more intentional about it. So I mentioned we did the research in the past few months, and on average, performance marketers think that about 62% of the overall brand and enterprise marketing budgets are moving to performance marketing. A significant chunk of them, 70%, feel that between half and 100% of marketing budgets will move to performance channels. That's massive. And there's a real important reason for that growth. And you see it in the quote at the bottom there. There's a growing demand for all marketing to be performance-based. That's Lori Cutts. She's a head of partner and media channels at Acceleration Partners and helped with the report. She says companies are no longer tolerating paying for things and being kept in the dark about what they're getting in return. So there's a bunch of reasons why performance is evolving and brand budgets are being put to work. And they're pretty clear and simple. And this is what the 2,000 people plus who answered the survey talked to us about. Flexibility, increased marketing reach, pay for performance so you can scale your marketing when you want to. Transparency of spend and return. And guess what? Lower risk, because when you manage correctly, you're never spending huge amounts with uncertain returns, like a Super Bowl ad or something like that. So it's also interesting as we look at the evolution of performance marketing, of affiliate marketing, where performance marketers now work. We're seeing some significant change there because basically they work everywhere. A decade ago, you might have seen affiliate marketing living in the basement, right? The coffee shop, maybe a shabby little office, maybe on the wrong side of the tracks. Today, performance marketers are everywhere in every niche of the marketing ecosystem. So a quarter work in agencies, another quarter work directly for brands, and about 16% work with ad tech platforms like TuneZone has offers that enable performance partnership marketing at scale. There's still a lot of room for performance marketing to grow, however, and our respondents identified 5 key requirements for the industry's continued growth. Obviously, top of the list is fraud protection. That should go without saying. But automation and AI is super important too. Marketers need simpler ways of dealing with the vast volumes of campaigns and data that they have. They need smart systems that make intelligent decisions based on preset marketing goals. Number 3, they need transparency and openness. Performance marketers do need to be clear about the tactics, strategies, and the sources that they're using to enable trust from their enterprise and brand customers. In return, of course, brands need to respect those confidences. And fourth, alignment of incentives. If performance marketers are simply incentivized to provide traffic, leads, or other top of funnel inputs, that's exactly what they'll do. But if they're incentivized to drive actions that result in provable ROI and can be properly measured in doing so, then incentives are aligned between partners and brands. And fifth, owned platforms. When brands own their own platforms, they set the rules. That enables transparency, that enables alignment, that enables fraud protection. It also ensures that brands don't pay more than they need to for the services rendered. That's just a brief overview of the report that we put together. It's available right now from the tune.com and Has Offers websites. And now let me introduce more fully the people that are going to be talking to us about where affiliate, where performance marketing is going. First of all, Bob. Robert Glazer, CEO of Acceleration Partners. Bob is the founder and CEO of Acceleration Partners. He's also the co-founder and chairman of Brand Cycle. He's a serial entrepreneur. He has a passion for helping people. And he's the author of the best-selling book, Performance Partnerships. You should check it out. And by the way, you'll see that there is a special deal that you can get this for free today. Very, very interesting. He also has his Friday Forward column and inspirational posts, and very, very exciting. Follow him. I am also excited to introduce Brian Marcus, who's the VP of Global Marketing at Tune. He's been shaping performance marketing in e-commerce communities as a digital marketer, as a platform owner, and as a platform evangelist since 2002. He launched into e-commerce at JC Whitney, and he built 2 global affiliate marketing programs. You may have heard of these companies. One is Google, and the other is eBay. Most recently, Brian was VP of Marketing at Teespring, and now, of course, he's the VP of Global Marketing at Tune. Excellent. So, Robert and Brian, happy to bring you in here. Happy to have this conversation about what's going on. And let me introduce Bob first with this question. Bob, we're seeing affiliate marketing grow up. What's changing?
Thanks, John. Really interesting information and exciting to see this kind of data coming out of the industry for the first time. There's a lot changing. I think probably more changing than staying the same. I think that companies are finally realizing how powerful the concept of performance marketing is when it's done right. And they're also realizing that they might have thrown out the baby with the bathwater with their what I call kind of Gen 1 program, where they launched a program, they might have run it on a network, they really didn't pay any attention to it. Years later, their company brought attribution software in place, and there was a whole, everyone was up in arms that the affiliate channel is non-incremental and the partners were off brand, and then that gets a lot of programs shut down. So I think people have conflated whether the concept of performance marketing is strong with, and I think we all believe it's the best form of marketing, with how some of these programs are run. And a few of the other, I think, things that are really driving the change is you're seeing separation of technology and services, and that there's just much better competition on each side, both for technology platforms and for services. You're seeing more in-house programs, as you talked a little bit in your data, and you're seeing people think about these performance marketing programs or performance partnership programs, as we like to call them, as the ability to consolidate things that they're doing across a bunch of different channels and wrap it all into one program for the first time.
Excellent, excellent. Brian, I've got a question for you, but both of you guys, if no matter who I ask, feel free to jump in and add something or anything that you like. So Brian, you've talked about marketing and measurability quite a bit in your career. You know, what does this shift to performance marketing say about marketing measurement?
Well, first of all, John, thank you for the question, and thanks for hosting today, and good morning to Bob. What I think this says really is that you better be able to capture all types of measurement, regardless of where the customer is. And also what I think it says is that you have to be able to track new types of media, and media that perhaps is not traditionally what we would consider affiliate, the traditional affiliate type of media. So that's where I think the shift of performance marketing and measurement come together, is being able to say, what is my marketing investment worth? You know, how do I tie this measurement to an outcome? How do I tie this investment to an outcome?
Right, across all media, across all platforms, across everything that you're doing, correct?
That's right. That's right. You should be able to not only track what people are actually, where they're advertising today, but we should be able to anticipate that many of these performance marketers will go into areas that today aren't traditionally monetized, and be able to start fast following them on being able to track and attribute their measurement.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Bob, it sounds like you want to jump in there. Go ahead.
Yeah, you heard my breath. I think this is part of the redefining affiliate in terms. It's not as much a channel as it is a model, and I think you see partnerships and folks like media companies who have lost a lot of display advertising because rates have plummeted, looking to enter the performance space, and some of them are new partners, but some of them are partners that have been around for a while, looking to operate in a different way. And so I think Brian's correct. There's two things. There's these non-traditional partners, but then people wanting to take a holistic look at this and not have their affiliate or performance channel just measured in isolation. They want to understand the interaction across all their different channels. And you know, the elusive incrementality. I think everyone in theory wants to pay for incrementality, which is better than when people say they just want to pay for new customers. I think that's a little bit of a misnomer, because you know, Amazon wouldn't have an affiliate program if it was only going to pay for new customers. And a lot of companies, we've started asking this question, think of a new customer, someone that hasn't bought in 3 to 6 months. So it's just really assigning value, I think, to each partner.
I love what you just said about it's not a channel, it's a model. That's really, really, really critical. I mean, and that's something actually that at Tune we've been preaching for some years on the mobile level, because we do a lot in mobile, and we're saying, hey, mobile's not a channel. Look, email's mobile, web's mobile, a lot of things are mobile, affiliate is mobile, performance, but this is a model of how you do your marketing. I think that's really, really key. Excellent. Moving on, Bob, I'm going to direct this next question to you. I recently had a conversation with a senior Adobe research scientist, super interesting, AI, VR, all these cool things. One thing that he said really stood out. He said that between 1% and 3% of all the data that the entire Adobe Marketing Cloud collects is actually seen or used by marketers. They're drowning in data. But I've talked to you and you said, hey, the data's there, it's simple to get. Can you talk about this, the challenge, the problem, and explain what you mean? Hey, it's simple if you look at it the right way.
Yeah, I don't want to ever say that it's data or attribution is simple, but I think it's simpler than people make it. You know, every conference we've done, dinner, event, the last couple of years just been attribution. I think people just felt like there was some magic answer that they needed to get, and there is no magic answer. And I think you're hearing about it less because the approach to attribution has really been driven by the data and data scientists and not marketers. And attribution is it's half art, half science, but it really needs to be delivered by marketers who are looking at the data and making guesses. So a common thing I think people have done the last few years in their affiliate program is they get some sort of attribution thing. It looks at their program. It tells them to raise this commission, lower this commission. A lot of those decisions make absolutely no sense when we've looked at them, and it just assumes that it's a simple answer. Versus, I've always said, rather than lowering a publisher from 8% to 4%, if there's some aspect of their traffic or conversions that you don't value, you should take the data, you should sit down and have a discussion with them. You should say, look, this is where these things are coming in the funnel. This part of your data is actually really valuable to us and maybe is worth 10%. This part's worth 2%. How can we work together? What do you need to drive more of the 10%? This, again, is where a lot of the partnership and marketing and strategic thinking, the data is never going to produce an answer. I think this data needs to be turned over to marketers who say, okay, I have enough data. Now, what am I going to do with it? And so far, that's been a little bit of the missing piece.
Interesting. So the data in itself, it's not enough. You need the strategy with it. And by the way, it's a partnership, which is kind of a new thing in the affiliate world. Go ahead, Brian.
No, and I was going to say, look, Bob, I think your point. My head was nodding the whole time because I remember back in the eBay days, it was always asking yourself, not should I work with a partner, but how should I work with a partner, because of exactly the value question. Is like you have the ability to price traffic, and depending on what you're trying to do. And so I think that's the right way to look at it, versus just purely looking at it from, say, a CFO perspective. Maybe it's looking at it like from a marketing strategy perspective. So sorry,
yeah, we've seen the recommendations by some of these attribution systems, and they make no sense just intuitively. What I know, it's like paying what we deem to be some of the highest volume, lowest value partners, and giving them higher commissions. Again, maybe because it's based on a last in model, but some of the recommendations I've seen just seem very counterintuitive to what if I put on my strategy cap, what I would have recommended that the company do.
That's a really good segue to the next question, which I'm going to throw to Brian. And Brian, you've talked about how attribution is a key to knowing what's working as a marketer. So we're talking about the right kind of attribution now. Can focusing on bottom funnel conversions save marketers from the data deluge and analysis paralysis and maybe some of the wrong conclusions that Bob's been talking about?
Well, I think I guess the way to answer that question from my perspective is it sort of depends, right? Because you have to think about things from a marketer's objectives perspective. And it should always start with the marketer's objectives. I don't think it's about saving marketers from data. I think it's about arming marketers with the data that they need to help meet their objectives. So for example, it could be that a marketer is interested in an awareness campaign and they have partners that can help them achieve that goal, like a branding campaign. Or it could be about a conversion type of an objective. So those partners that can assist that marketer to help them reach their objectives should get that type of compensation. And therefore, thinking about bottom funnel in the case of a conversion opportunity is the right way to think of it. And thinking about giving credit to those types of partners is quite appropriate. However, there are opportunities where in fact, you want partners to drive awareness, and you want to be able to also structure the right incentive and the right attribution model to give credit to those that help on the upper funnel. Now, I think last click is, I've always kind of thought last click is sort of beautiful in its simplicity, right? It's universally accepted, and therefore it makes for a level playing field. Whether it's fair or not, at least everybody knows the rules of the game with last click. However, I just think, in an evolving world where data is available and where you can start to figure out how to leverage your partners in the right way, it is incumbent upon the marketer to think about using that data to sort of help them make the right decisions on where to give credit, upstream or downstream.
What I love about what you're saying here is that we've had this strong focus on data for the marketer, and we still have that, and measurement for the marketer, and we still have that. But what both of you are bringing in here is that there's a level of strategic thinking, a level of savvy as a marketer that's really, really critical to adding to this in order to do the right thing with the data that you have. Bob, let's turn to you here. So some of what we've been talking about seems really obvious to those who might have been in the affiliate space for a while, but it's actually not that common across the board in marketing yet, is it?
No, and I think that's because most programs have been run largely on a cookie cutter. Hey, we set up the program and insert the same 5 to 10 large affiliates. And the discussion that we're having with clients and aligns with what Brian's saying is understanding their business model, right? We had a client who was a flash sale site located near you guys. And they only wanted last in because whatever they were selling last week was irrelevant. And so we had to structure the technology and the program and the parameters around that because it was flash sales. And so what happened last week was irrelevant today. There are other companies where that's the opposite, and they really want to reward the top of funnel, and they don't want that last minute stuff and traffic, and it's not as interesting to them. So I think it really starts with understanding the business objectives and model, and then designing a program and finding the technology that supports that. And one of the examples that I always give is if you think about, and this is kind of a Gen 3 example, is if you think of like a hotel program, like Starwood Preferred Guest, one of the top loyalty programs, they go out of their way to make sure that people buy from them. I'm a Starwood Platinum member. If I stay 70 nights a year and I have the credit card, like I am loyal. So in Starwood's affiliate program, they really shouldn't be paying loyalty sites. That it's kind of double dipping for me to earn my money and then also have all this built-in loyalty. There was just no way to deal with that 5 or 10 years ago. The technology and company sophistication of a program these days might say, you know what, we're actually going to pass back whether the person has a credit card, is a loyalty member otherwise, and we are not going to commission loyalty partners on sales that come from our best customers. However, we'll commission loyalty partners on recruiting new people to our loyalty program because that's really valuable to us. These are the type of, and this goes to talent, which we can talk about later. I think Brian and I have some similar feelings on that, on what talent is required to run these types of programs. But these are discussions that just never would have happened in a program 5 or 10 years ago.
Interesting.
Yeah, they used to be, it was always all or nothing, right? And I think one of the amazing things that data has done has really given us the possibility to work within sort of the spectrum and to be able to say not whether, but how, right? It's not, do I work with this partner or not? Well, I suppose you can choose not to work with a partner if they don't meet your objectives, but for those business models that bring value to the table, the question is how much value do they bring to your particular business?
Cool. So Bob, I'm going to jump back to you here real quick. In your book that we talked about, and by the way, as everybody's probably seen for 10 minutes now on the screen, you can get a free copy of that book. Apologies, Bob can only mail that out to people in the UK and the US, so sorry about that. It's an actual physical copy that he will mail out if you email your name and mailing address to the email address on the screen there. But in your book, you talk about performance partnerships. Briefly, can you explain what those are?
Sure, and I'll just throw in, you can get it almost anywhere else on Kindle. We just can't control the the distribution there. So performance partnerships, when I was writing the book and I was thinking about some names and we were really trying to differentiate what we did, the discussion was, what is this part of affiliate marketing that we like and really resonates with us, and then where does it get a lot of its bad name from, and how do we sort of, as I talked to Kate, what's the champagne of affiliate programs where you can say this is the good stuff and not the bad stuff. So the 4 elements of a performance partnership, because I think performance marketing gets very confusing. Some people refer to that as search or otherwise. The first is the CPA, the cost per action, or sometimes I say cash on delivery. So that's the part of the affiliate model that everyone loves. It's not that I can measure performance, it's you pay when it gets delivered. So that's key. And that's always been part of affiliate marketing. The next 2 really have not been a lot part of affiliate marketing, and that is there's transparency and then there's real relationships. So that's 2 and 3. And if I think back to when I first started in the industry 10 or 15 years ago, merchants were chastised if they asked their affiliates what they were doing. They're like, why, are you going to copy from me? It was always amazing to me that you could be seen as a franchisee, and it's almost like if McDonald's had franchises and they wouldn't tell them where they were or they were located their stores. And so, in the programs we're seeing today, there is transparency. Everything is in the open. You know where traffic's coming from. There's real relationships. You treat that person as a partner, and it is not this transactional, don't ask, don't tell. And then the last part, which has always existed to some extent into the affiliate industry, that I think the rest of the world, particularly when they're all talking about blockchain and stuff, is understanding that a lot of this exists in tracking systems today, but it's that real-time tracking and payment mechanism. So it's the ability for both parties to see the data, to handle the multiple accounts, to get people signed up. It's a scalability piece. So really a performance partnership is CPA, transparency, relationships, and real-time tracking. And I think if you have those things, that's a quality program. And we're seeing a lot more private label programs called partner programs that are using the new technology to roll together these programs with both their traditional affiliate program, but also issues like partner development and business development light and relationships that have been handled with UTM codes and Excel spreadsheets and paper checks and all other things that the affiliate ecosystem really can help with.
Right. Good. So Brian, let's turn to you. Connect the dots for us here. This all sounds super interesting, but how do you start? How do brands and retailers get started with? How do they build it, and what kind of technology do they need?
Well, first and foremost, I think marketers need to think through, when I think about the question of what attribution and measurement are, they need to figure out sort of what's their best source of truth to measure the outcomes that they seek to measure. And then secondly, to attribute the proper credit to their partners. Many advertisers, often smaller brands, use affiliate networks to scale their partner discovery and management efforts. And it seems like a very workable model, and it makes a lot of sense for many of those types of advertisers. However, larger brands, when they get more established partnerships, those where they have very sort of deep and rich relationships, they leverage SaaS technology platforms to manage those relationships. And that is because oftentimes data flows very directly, and the depth of the data required to manage a relationship like that, it requires a deeper set of technologies, sets of APIs and reporting. For example, platforms like Tune are white labeled by many networks, in one case on the publisher side, and marketers alike, to manage those ongoing relationship building activities. And in many cases, when I think a program has sufficient scale, there's a fairly straightforward business case to white label a SaaS platform to manage those relationships. And in particular, because there's really lots of moving parts. One is the actual landscape itself. I mean, think about privacy, think about what's going on with GDPR, think about the complexities of trying to keep a platform safe for users. That's one reason why you wouldn't want to necessarily build your own system today, but you'd want to go lease out one from a SaaS platform. And then secondly, I think of maintenance in particular, downtime, tracking, all those things that you don't want to be spending your time worrying about. You tend to outsource that to someone else to do. Really, in the end, I think marketers really need to focus on building relationships and not fixing tracking issues. So partnering with other affiliate networks, partnering with SaaS platforms are the ways that marketers and publisher networks can attribute and measure their performance.
And just two comments on that. I think from the client side, there's a real desire to call these partner programs and to have it be driven by the brand and have the brand at the center of that, particularly if they're recruiting their own publishers. You know, one of the other things that is driving a lot of companies to incorporate SaaS is they love the model, but if they're going to be recruiting the partners, then they don't really want to be paying a performance fee on partners that they recruit. And so they're saying, look, if I'm going to do the work, I'm going to pull my biz dev partners in. I don't want to pay a performance fee, and I don't want to share them with anyone else. So it is a way to build a program and partners and all these things that is a competitive advantage that cannot be duplicated by someone else. Today with Facebook and Google, almost anyone can download super user tools and just go and bid a little more than anyone else. So we continue to believe that these programs are one of the few ways left to really wrap your partners together and build a competitive advantage.
Super interesting, and you can build that flywheel and get that flywheel going as you get more and more progressed and more and more partners on it and buying into what you're doing. Very interesting. Brian, let's turn to you for the next question about these performance partnerships. Who's on the cutting edge of creating these performance partnerships? Can you give us some examples?
Sure. Well, I think I would define sort of companies that really value and lean into measurement are those that are most appropriate and most appropriately work in the performance partnership arena. And I've personally experienced it with companies that are super, super rich with data, companies like eBay, companies like Target, Microsoft, Groupon. There's a number of companies out there, a lot of the marketplace companies like Uber, who really understand the value of measurement, and they're starting to use that to apply different types of call it models to incentivize and to attract different types of parties. So for example, if you're in a marketplace model, you have buyers and sellers, you can use affiliate networks and performance partnership type of arrangements to work in that realm. But these are often companies that really value strong direct relationships with their partners. And I think part of the reason these types of companies are so successful is that they have a real commitment to understanding what the partners need, and they understand what pieces of their infrastructure need to be outsourced. And in the cases of those that build their own networks internally, those are companies that really require a commitment of engineering and product management to be all in on going through the ups and downs of managing a network infrastructure. And oftentimes companies find themselves taking those things on, it's more than they can handle. So I'd say those companies that have the resources are typically those on the cutting edge and those that have the data.
Interesting, interesting. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of a different section right now. We're going to peer into the future, and I'm going to ask Bob and Brian to kind of riff a little bit on three things. And we're looking into the future, maybe 2 to 5 years. And the first question, and Brian, why don't you take first crack at it? What does marketing look like at the enterprise or brand level? So we're looking in the future, 2 to 5 years. What's marketing look like at the enterprise brand level in the near future?
Well, I think I'd like to believe that all marketing will be measured in 2 to 5 years. So in enterprise, more and more types of media will be tracked. There'll be a whole lot less commission leakage, as we used to call it, where if you come in through one channel and if a customer comes in through one channel and buys through another, the actual publishers that drive that traffic would actually get recognized for the work that they did. There'll be a whole lot more connection points. We'll be able to bring new users to these enterprises through many different places, and a greater awareness of how traffic and outcomes are tied together. And out of that comes sort of bigger, tighter relationships between marketers and ad partners. That's what I see in 2 to 5 years.
Very cool, Bob.
Yeah, similarly, I think, I mean, I've said I think 40 to 50% of the marketing budget, the online marketing budget, will be performance or CPA based in some way. I think, you know, paying for inputs is gonna move aside in favor of paying for outcomes, and people are really gonna be looking to measure that performance. I think you're going to see a lot more of these partner programs or performance partnership programs, and you're going to see vernacular like someone is talking to a company and they're going to say, talking about doing something together and say, oh, we have our partner program, our digital partner program. It's all set up. You can join, you can sign the agreement, we can get you set up tomorrow. I just think that is going to become the kind of default way of interacting. It's more of like this in-house network rather than saying, oh, we'll just add another channel, add another channel, add another channel, and having all this data in different channels we're measuring. I think each company will have its own sort of provisioning system, and when someone has a new and interesting thing, they will plug into that. I've also talked a little bit about, I think, the concept of marketplaces of marketing. What Uber and Airbnb have done in these programs is rather than try to be great at everything, part of your job will be go find the expert and close the deal with them. If they're the Snapchat expert or whatever comes after that, you can build this huge marketplace without having to own all the underlying assets. You just set the conditions.
Cool, very cool. Maybe going back to Brian for this one. So these shifts that we're talking about here, what's that mean for maybe smaller marketing firms that could be partnering with these enterprises, brands, and retailers?
Well, I think as things get unbundled, you find a greater focus on specialization. So for example, you probably, for many of these smaller marketing firms, they will develop niches around helping companies find call it unique distribution opportunities and helping them manage specific types of partners in specific types of ways. I mean, I can think of anything from maybe one day we start to see, you know, over the top TV hosting ads that affiliates are placing, are buying media on, and require a different set of assets, a different set of reporting requirements. I can imagine smaller marketing firms really carving out those niches.
Cool. Brian, oh, sorry, Bob.
Yeah, I think we're going to see all kinds of different players, and I think if you are world class at doing something, you will have an opportunity to almost partner with any company. We've even seen clients where, you know, they have a global budget for something, and then the paid search budget is sort of reaches its limit for Brazil, right? And they may then reach out to one of their search partners and say, okay, you're on a performance basis. So if you're really good at what you do, you won't need a job, and you won't necessarily have to sell agency services. You will have the ability to, I think, partner with world-class brands, join their programs, come up with an economic arrangement, and do what you do well.
Interesting, interesting. Okay, so let's we're still looking into the future, 2 to 5 years. Final question here, and we'll get Brian first. How does this change the role of the marketer?
Well, I think of the role of the marketer as an investor. And I think over time, just like you do with your own personal finances and some of the platforms you work through there, you'll start to use platforms to sift through the insights across all of your bets and make better decisions across your relationships. So I think the role of the marketer really becomes putting that money to work and using ROI as a leveler, a great leveler of sort of all media, and figuring out where you want to increase your ROI. And lastly, I think being a marketer will mean developing deeper relationships with your partners. And I think that bodes really well into what Bob's book is all about and sort of how he's described the future of relationships. It's data plus a personal touch, right? So I think one of the things I love about this space and that keeps me here all the time is that it's a relationship-driven business. But those relationships get better and better when partners get closer and understand each other's businesses better. So I see that being greater transparency, deeper relationships, measurable results for marketers.
Nice. Bob?
Yeah, I think that everyone, as Brian said, the industry to me has always been 50% technology and 50% relationships. And I think the people that have relied on too far on one have really struggled. You know, they've tried to develop the best technology in the world and don't have the relationships and don't have the trust, or they've focused on relationships and let the technology, you know, really get outdated and not do what they need to do. So that's what I love about this market too. It really is the balance. But I think they serve each other. So when you go to a partner and say, hey, I'd love to have a discussion with you on how we can work together and we can do this smart thing and we can pay you X for Y and we want to pay you more in these circumstances. There are a lot of companies that want to do that stuff, but the technology has not been there. And I think it is really finally getting there to allow that win-win between technology and human. Everyone who has come into the channel with a tech only play that doesn't recognize the human element, I think has learned that mistake the hard way in this industry.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I want to thank both of you, Bob and Brian, for being part of this webinar. Much appreciated. A lot of wisdom dropped down here. Really appreciate it. Quick reminder to everybody who's listening, we want to see you at Postback. It's going to be incredible, but it won't be as good as it could be if you're not there. Use the code on the screen to get in, $200 off. Love to see you there. If you want to get in touch with one of the two presenters here, Robert or Brian, there's their information right there. They're sharing it and you're able to get in touch. And of course, this will be available recorded as well. And finally, thank you so much for being with us. So many of you stayed the whole way through the webinar. It's amazing. Hardly ever see that. Thank you so much for being with us for Performance Evolution, putting the brand budget to work, and see you next time.